So God of War creative director Cory Barlog makes a very good point about God of War, the next God of War, being cross-gen. Let's get into it.
Skip it up and that up.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button and also hit the bell to get notifications of all my newest uploads. I got a surprise coming real soon, so you're going to want to stay around for that. So anyway, this past week, Santa Monica Studios announced that the next God of War, or God of War Ragnarok, that's not the official name I know, is not coming out in 2021. And people weren't happy about the delay, to the point where they left Alana Pierce, who is on the Santa Monica team, a very colorful message that if you want to go check out what happened there, I'll have a link to my other video below in the description if you want to see it. But nonetheless, yeah, there's people complaining that the game, there's two things people are complaining about. They're complaining about the fact that the game is cross-gen. They're also complaining about the fact that it got delayed. But people brought up a very good point for everyone that's angry and complaining that the game is cross-gen, that the game is going to be delayed, is that God of War 2 came out in early 2007 for the PlayStation 2 when the PlayStation 3 was already released, and it never got released, at least initially. Later on, it was released as like a remaster, but initially, God of War 2 never came to the PlayStation 3. So where was the anger there? It was there, but the internet wasn't as profound as it is now, so we just didn't hear the complaints. Now, God of War 2, even though it was a PS2 only title when the PS3 was released, did very well. It was critically acclaimed, and it ended up being a great game, even though it was on Sony's more limited, older hardware. And a Twitter user brought this up, and Cory had an interesting reply to it. Anyway, this is what the user had to say. I'll read that to you, and then we will discuss. Mr. Barlog, interestingly, no one complained when God of War 2 was made for the PlayStation 2 console, even though the PS3 console was already available. And now a lot of them are angry that God of War Ragnarok will be on PS4 and PS5, but also for other games that will be for both consoles. And he also wrote this too. People forget that Sony sticks to tradition. When the PS2 console came out, many games were still coming out for the PS1 console. With backwards compatibility, you could play PS1 games on the PS2 console. And that was actually interesting because the PS2 had native PS1 hardware capabilities built in. It was like there was a PS1 inside of your PS2. When the PS3 came out, many games came out for the PS2 console. Even two versions were made for some games, one for the PS2 and the other for the PS3. In some cases, the PS2 version received much better ratings from critics than the PS3 version. The same thing when the PS4 came out. Now Sony is doing the same thing with the PS4 and PS5. It allows its fans a flexible transition period. Sony has never forced its fans to switch to the new console right away, but allows them a transition period. This shows how much Sony cares about its fans, which we could say they do other things that show the opposite, which I've talked about before. But this is a valid point they're making nonetheless. And a side note here, I just want to bring up before I forget. People are saying to me, Rich, you're defending this, but then you call out the Xbox Series X for holding back the current generation. Yeah, because this is cross-gen, where eventually the previous generation of consoles are going to be fizzled out, the PS4 and Xbox One. The Series S is considered current generation, and when it comes to consoles anyway, it's been going to be the lowest common denominator, but that may not end up being a big deal with fidelity effects coming out and other things. Maybe the Series S won't be a bottleneck for the current gen, but developers, not me, developers are saying that because it's always going to be a part of the current generation. These cross-gen games for previous gen and current gen, eventually they're going to stop being cross-gen. You can't compare the two, and I'm kind of surprised that people don't understand that. But Cory responds and makes a simple and to-the-point statement here and says this. People did complain. It was just not that visible. But that one worked out okay, huh? And it did. God of War 2 was critically acclaimed, considered a great game. You may say that at the time when people were getting their PS3s, that all the PS3s, or most of them, I believe, at that point were still hardware backwards compatible with the PS2. So if they had a PS3 and wanted to play God of War 2, they could play it, no problem. And yeah, it wasn't a big deal. Now, a lot of people I saw in comments are bringing up to me, why are you giving Halo Infinite such a tough time, them trying to run it on the base Xbox One, but Sony, you're not giving as tough of a time? Well, first off, a game like God of War, which is fairly linear, is not going to be as demanding on the hardware. Again, I'm an armchair engineer. This is my take on it. Whereas a somewhat open world game or a fairly open world game like Halo Infinite is going to be more taxing on the hardware. It's going to be more taxing, especially on those anemic old Jaguar cores in the Xbox One, than a somewhat linear game like God of War will be. Also, to other games like Horizon Forbidden West, yeah, that's more open world, but it's not trying to be as expansive in scope as Halo Infinite is trying to be. And I could see the developers having a tougher time with the base Xbox One hardware to get Halo Infinite to run. It's just, I mean, look, the PS4 was more powerful than the base Xbox One, the base PS4, I should say. And that still wasn't great shakes. So they're trying to make a huge, the most ambitious Halo game ever run on hardware that, in my opinion, has no business running it. So it's not that I'm holding it to a double standard. I just see the scope and the ambition of the game they're trying to make run on the Xbox One, Halo Infinite, that is. And I just don't see it running well. And I could be wrong about this, but let's just say this so I kind of cover my own ass. If they cancel the base Xbox One version of Halo Infinite, it wouldn't surprise me. Again, it's a different animal of a game than Horizon Forbidden West and the new God of War. I'm just saying. But back to what Cory's saying here. Yeah, I don't really see what the complaint is about. Okay, this isn't the same as the Xbox Series S. That's a current generation console. This is a cross-generation game, and eventually cross-generation games are going to fizzle out and they're just going to be made for current gen. So you can't compare the two. And did anyone see how God of War 2018 looked on the PS4 Pro? Looked pretty good. Like, you still hooked up to a 4K TV. I understand they're using checkerboard rendering, but still looks amazing. And it looks even better on the PS5 with the visual fidelity and now running at 60 FPS. So it's going to be an amazing game. It's going to run great. It's going to be fine no matter which version you play. And look, with how the PS5 keeps selling out and people just can't get their damn hands on it, they can't just ignore their 100 million plus install base of their previous gen console when the new console was just released and just leave everyone else in the dust. They need to make sure they get a return on these very expensive games that they're making. So just be patient. For Christ's sake, just be patient. And anyone out there that thinks it's okay to have someone say what they said to Alana Pierce in a DM, you're just disgusting human beings, and you need to get lives. And I will not apologize for saying that. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one. Hey, if you enjoy my content, consider becoming a Review Tech USA member. I'll have a link below in the description. I live stream now on this channel all the time, and it gives you access to cool emoticons to use as well while I live stream. Again, link below in the description. Thank you for your continued support.